Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Cybersecurity in the Age of AI. Thanks for joining. I'm Amy, an AI-generated avatar. I'll be your moderator. Creepy, right? We'll have a 25-minute panel and 5 minutes of live Q&A. Please drop your questions in the chat. Let's meet the human panelists. Anna, can you kick us off? Please introduce yourself, and then we'll move to Rami and Alon.
My name is Anna McAbee. I am a senior solutions architect at AWS. I specifically focus on threat detection and incident response. I recently started also focusing on generative AI. So thanks, Wiz and Amy, for having me. I look forward to this discussion.
Hi, I'm Rami. I'm a security engineer with Figma. I work on infrastructure security and also, as with every company, we're sort of looking at ways to secure AI both in our employees' usage and in our products. And I worked with my friend Clint Gibbler over at TLDRSec on a guide to how you can do that, which sort of is a lead into some of the thoughts I'll share today. Alon, over to you.
Thank you, Rami. My name is Alon. I'm leading the data and threat research group here at Wiz. We see AI as we have two different perspectives. One is how to help cloud customers adopt AI faster and adopt it in a secure way. And this is one way that we research AI. The other one is enhancing existing features or creating new features that can harness the power of AI and make security easier for cloud customers. And I have some background in this field, both in previous jobs, also some academia work that I've done in this space.
My first question is about AI adoption. To give us a baseline, Alon, tell us what Wiz Research has observed with respect to AI in cloud environments.
Thank you. So first, I think the most interesting detail is to see the pace of adoption. We are talking, if we try to think about when we first saw ChatGPT, that was I think one of the first signs of the huge leap, AI leap that we saw in one of the most significant technological leaps that we saw in the past few decades. It was less than a year ago. And that was when ChatGPT was first publicly introduced. And, since then, and again, I'm talking about around 10 months, we saw that more than half of the cloud customers actually started adopting AI services, generative AI services. And we don't have numbers to reference, for other or compare exactly, but this is definitely one of the fastest ever adoption rates that we've ever seen. And when we talk about this fast adoption rate, I think that the question that we should ask ourselves is whether organizations know how to secure these services, and even sometimes whether security teams even know about the existence of these services, whether they know if their data science teams, their engineers have started using these services. And one recent example that I can give to the potential risk of AI, in addition to the great value and the great potential that AI has, is the risks that are coming with it. And we saw, we published around a month ago research done by Wiz, where we found 38 terabytes of data that were leaked due to misuse of a feature in Azure called the SAS tokens. And this data was data that was stored by a Microsoft AI engineer. And the reason that the data was leaked was lack, I guess, of experience, lack of security controls that will prevent the training data of AI to be leaked. And this is just one example, and one with that could have had more severe consequences if we didn't found it and responsibly disclosed it to Microsoft. How the need for AI and the great adoption that we see now could end if you don't adopt it in the right way.
Next question. AI is sometimes sanctioned by the business, and there's also shadow AI. It's almost impossible to opt out, whether it's permitted or not. What are the security challenges this creates? Rami, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Amy, for queuing me up. Yeah, the security challenges with shadow AI just resemble the cycle we see with a lot of technology. I think especially these technologies that are super innovative and are released in a consumer-facing way early. It means you are guaranteed to have employees, have users who are starting to explore these in their personal time, trying to bring that expertise, that experience, that efficiency to work. Shadow AI is about intent, really, to me, which is to say that many of your employees, many of your colleagues, maybe you yourself are using AI to perform your job more effectively. You're not intending to violate security. You may not even consider those boundaries if you're not a security engineer. In highly regulated industries, this has been a really strong concern, and you see hard guardrails in place. If you have the room to work this as a culture factor, I think you can get a lot of leverage. Talking with your employees about appropriate and inappropriate usage, building paved roads, bringing some of these technologies in-house in supported platforms that have strong controls. These shadow AI usages are data security problems, data sprawl problems, privacy problems. You'll see them elsewhere in your business. If you look, it's just bringing it really to, I think, ahead for many companies as it makes them realize that they do have a lot of employees with overprivileged access to data that can then leak into these AI tools. And there's a lack of visibility here, yes, but you either have visibility on your employees' sort of actions with third-party tools or you don't. And I think that with this shadow AI concern, you have to build that visibility holistically, just like you do with other tech. That's what we're seeing, at least on the consumer side of some of this AI, especially with our employees and corporate usage. Anna, what's your take on this?
Yeah, quite similar. So I think you have to think that this is probably being used to drive security decisions and controls implementations already. So you have to find a way that your employees can use it in a safe way. And I think in a lot of ways there are parallels to the early days of cloud. I feel like we spent so much time convincing people that security in AWS is real and it can really enhance what you're doing. And so I think it sets some people back who are not maybe bought in and they said, oh, this is a fad. We can kind of see the same here. You kind of have to buy in. You have to find a way to use it at your organization securely. So again, there's tons of technologies out there, whether it's, Chat GPT or actually, building your own model. So I'm obviously familiar with AWS because I work at AWS. So we have SageMaker and Bedrock. And so within SageMaker, there's a lot of different ways you could use it within your organization. So I know Wiz has, some ways that they can help secure. Alon, would you mind commenting on, some of those aspects within SageMaker that you guys have to help organizations security-wise on that front?
Yeah. So when using SageMaker, and we see SageMaker is one of the most popular AI services or services that are used to train AI models, I think that what we usually see is that you have some access to databases. SageMaker can be also exposed externally, but it might also have access to some sensitive data. And I think that both engineers and security teams have to make sure that they have the right tools to understand what is the risk, because I think that everyone's ultimate goal is to enable the teams to work fast and train their models using the pipelines that the SageMaker enables. But you have to make sure that you have the right tools and the right controls to ensure that sensitive data won't leak because of the use of such services.
How do we tackle this? Do you guys have advice on how to reduce risk and secure sensitive data in the age of AI? Alon, why don't you go first?
Thank you. So just continuing the previous point, I mean, we can see AI services, and it's just another service. I mean, it's not just another, but it's another service in the cloud. And similarly to how you have to make sure that you don't have risk or potential exposure because of other services, you first have to think about AI, in addition to the other unique characteristics that it has as another service. Then I think if we want to another analogy that might help is that AI can be seen as a database. I mean, it's not 100% correct, but you store the AI models and training. They have to use significant volumes of data, and sometimes the data is actually stored within the model. So the same risk that you have for databases should be also. You should be also concerned for the same risk when you start working with AI models. And talking about like more practical tips is to work closely with the engineering and data science teams. I think that what we see overall with organizations that are able to apply modern cloud security practices is that the engineering teams and the security teams work closely. It's no longer, just the task of the security team to ensure that there is no leak and that your data is indeed safe. It's a shared task that you have both for the engineering teams and security teams, and you have to make sure that the engineering teams are aware of these risks, and that they know whenever there is a risk. As security team, you might not even know that the data was exposed or that the services, an AI service is being used. And this is why you have to make sure that the responsibility, that the engineers understand the responsibility, they understand the potential risks. And for us, for me personally, I think that this is one of the top priorities when working with teams that started adopting AI. And with that, I would like to ask Rami about his thoughts and maybe give us some practical tips.
Yeah, I mean, culture eats strategy for breakfast. I do think that culture is key here, but we have to provide actual technical guardrails for folks to implement if they want to secure their businesses, especially in some of these industries where the stakes are much higher around data leaking into AI systems. I think the first place you start has to be with threat modeling, right? We're talking about AI very generally here today, but there's a lot of ways companies are consuming AI. You guys mentioned developing models with SageMaker, maybe leveraging models for features on top of something like Bedrock. Maybe it's employees using conversational AI, or maybe, one of your major SaaS providers has announced a AI feature they're pushing out to everyone, and you want to think about the security and risks there. It's different in every case. I do think that to establish really strong guardrails ends up giving you great practice in guardrails for other parts of your security model in business. Alon compared this to databases, which I think is apt, but especially I think a lot of the usage of AI in products and in development processes comes down to network security as well, and especially egress controls. When you think about how people are visualizing these risks of data being publicly exposed on the internet, of data transiting outside of the intended environments, having really strong visibility and the ability to be proactive around controlling data migration when it's being used for AI, while still enabling your ML teams to train models on data safely, while enabling other teams to consume those models in the product in real time, while giving your customers value, or your users internally, or yourself. It's hard. I fall back on culture. I think you have to choose your risk appetite. And Alon mentioned working with engineering. I also think you should be really clear about working with compliance and legal, setting standards early, setting expectations early. It's important to build trust with your teams internally and with your customers over how AI might be used safely, appropriately. With that, I think it's about time for another Amy jump scare.
Okay, so what are the benefits? How does AI help security teams? Anna, I'll send that question your way.
Thanks, Amy. Other than having Amy help, I think there's many ways that having generative AI can really help security teams. So first thing that comes to mind, maybe it's near and dear to me, is security operations. So there's a lot of opportunity there to improve how and enhance security operations. So I kind of put these in two buckets: is up-leveling security professionals. So think about like writing playbooks, probably not the most exciting job. And then like guiding remediation. I think that's a way that you can have your security operations staff get help. They can learn in the process, and they're not digging through documentation and things like that. And then the second area I would say is maybe somewhat similar, but automating mundane tasks. So this could be like summarizing your threat intel, doing reporting. I know that's something I feel like I spend a lot of time on security operations. So I think there's a lot to helping with security with AI. Obviously, one thing I do want to say is I think there should always be a human involved. We're not to the point where you need to, sorry, Amy, completely rely on AI. You'll obviously still want to have a human involved, but it could still remove parts of the job that are maybe not super interesting or, really could be helpful to replace with AI. So, Rami, do you agree with me on this?
Yeah, Anna, I think you're right on the mark, especially on the SOC traction. When you think about security problems that involve like distilling insights from big data and that have room for some lossy outcomes, right? SOCs are a great example, especially with the human in the loop, where you have that data, you have that problem, and it's a concrete business value because there's alert fatigue, as I'm sure we're all aware. At Figma, we've done a few things as well that have started to seem pretty impactful on ways we can leverage AI. One proof of concept we did recently was sort of training a model to identify potential gaps in our permissions. We have a really complex SaaS product, and so it's always pretty complicated to reason about permission systems at scale. We approached that from a few avenues, but it was really interesting to just like throw this problem to AI because it was easy to generate some possibilities for places there might be issues, and then a human can validate them. It's relatively low risk. We've also seen a lot of our security vendors try and incorporate AI to bring in deeper context, to maybe give a little bit of a preliminary opinion on whether findings might be valid or invalid, to color risk ratings. Again, I think AI is good for things that are harder to produce, easier to verify, maybe. One place that I think about that is for how we work with our customers on security reviews. We, with a human in the loop, I think can get a lot of leverage from distilling and translating between our corpus of security documentation, right here, all the things we're doing to help protect your data, and customers' questions, which may be very specific to them, their industry, their regulations. And doing that translation is a really manual process, and having maybe AI take a first pass at distilling which of our evidence is relevant to their questions, so a human is better prepared to have those conversations, is somewhere I see like rapid improvements and development, even with the current state of models training data we have available. Alon, like what is Wiz seeing? What are you seeing personally in the industry?
So I'll start with actually a very practical use case that we see. It's actually using AI. AI is really good with kind of translating text into structural data. And like one very common use case is using it to query data in your organization. There's so many different query languages and also rule languages. Like Rego, Yara, Sigma, SQL, all the different flavors of SQL, KQL. So I think that everyone in security is aware of the, and of course, the IAM policy, JSONs. I mean, so many different formats that you have to know and learn when you use security products or when you do security in general. And we find it very useful for such use cases. And again, as Anna mentioned, also Rami, I mean, you have to validate it. I mean, when you use AI to write a rule, it's really helpful, and can really shorten the writing time and also learning time. Just ask it to write the rule that you need, but you still have to validate it. You still have to make sure that it is accurate, because when doing, I think this is a very important, delicate point, doing mistakes in security can have significant costs, to your organization, and might put you at risk. So please validate. Don't just use the results as they as they are in the AI or the Gen AI service. But we see it. Some of the analysts in Wiz use it. We also know that many of our customers use it to handle all these different languages out there and formats.
Before we move to Q&A, let's do a lightning round question. Can each of you tell me your favorite AI use case? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I think I want to go first because mine's the most boring. So hopefully people forget it. But I would say I spent a lot of time writing and talking about cloud security. So I have enjoyed people doing summaries of long documents that I write. I don't have to write the introduction anymore. Somebody could do that for me. Obviously, like we said, you have to have checking for it, but I will say just document help like that where I don't have to involve somebody else. So I know it's probably the most boring example, but it's obviously improving my day to day. So Rami, what about you? Hopefully you have something more interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to take the thrilling and novel approach of saying Copilot is really cool. It's like the difference when you first had auto prompting in your typing up an email, where as someone who drops into a bunch of tech stacks, languages, code bases from a security perspective, having just a little bit of help getting Go syntax right has definitely helped me be more productive, and is the most concrete example where I'm day to day using AI to be more effective at work. What about you, Alon?
So for me, first, I'm really bad with birthday greetings. So I think that's one thing that, to be honest, my I think probably most common use when I need to say happy birthday to someone and want to, not just to say happy birthday, but with if speaking of security, I think that using it as, actually, I like the term Copilot. I use it as incident Copilot when investigating. So it's not really for writing code, or writing anything. But I think that when you see incidents, and as part of my job, we help customers with security incidents, and just kind of picking the AI brain about what should be the next step, or making sure that we actually covered all the potential attack paths, and I think that the data that you have within the AI models is really helpful, and specifically in modern environments, where you have both cloud, maybe even Kubernetes, and I think that there aren't many people in the world that have experience and really significant experience with incidents in, for example, a Kubernetes cluster. So using AI as my incident Copilot is I think something that I do, and I find it very helpful for such use cases.
I'll note that none of us said Amy, which is just a little inconsiderate of us.
Sorry, Amy. We've enjoyed you, I promise.
Now let's start the Q&A. Can a human please read out the questions? I'm scripted, so I can't.
So I think when we see Amy, we feel, at least the webinar host shouldn't be concerned about their job.
I still have a job tomorrow, today. Yes, thanks, Amy. I would be happy to be the human moderator for this panel. I hope we were able to show you guys that, yes, AI is cool, but there's still a need for humans at the end of the day as of right now. So we're going to move on to our Q&A. And as a reminder, if you do have any questions, please click the Q&A header at the top right module or enter your questions in the chat. We have somebody fielding them for us, so we're happy to answer anything. I do have a first question over here, though, that there's a discussion happening about how attackers can use AI to their advantage, but defenders can use it too. So how does it ultimately tip the scales, and in whose favor? Who's going to win this battle? And I don't know who wants to start first, but let's go with Anna. How about, since you're off mute, so I'm going to choose you.
So, I mean, I'd like to think, I think defenders obviously have the harder job, and there's so much mundane to it, where I think that they can get more guidance and respond quicker. Maybe I'm overly optimistic, but I would tip the scale towards the defenders, because the offensive security folks, they probably already have their tools. They're already picking at the low-hanging fruit. So I think that it shouldn't be it shouldn't be that they are now gaining all these new capabilities. They've had them for a while, right? So I would say hopefully it can enable defenders, but fingers crossed on that.
Yeah, I jump in to say I agree with that in like aspiration. Practically, I am a bit concerned that we'll see that commoditized attacks, especially against companies below the security poverty line, like this idea that there are all these small, medium businesses who can't afford to buy security products, hire security employees. Those commoditized attacks might scale even better with the benefit of AI. Phishing is a big example people point to. I think above the security poverty line, I think, yeah, defensive applications. So far, I've seen much more interesting ways defenders can scale their capabilities with AI than I've seen, clever, sophisticated red team applications of AI.
Yeah, and I just want to add, like, in addition that from my perspective, and I see different security incidents often. I haven't seen significant attacks with the fingerprints of AI. Again, I mean, I think that in the use case of phishing, there might be, but it's out of my scope, so I don't have any information about it. But in the more cloud native space, we still see the same traditional attacks and attack methods. So again, doesn't necessarily mean what's going to happen next, but if we try to see beyond the hype of AI and the different articles talking about AI attacks, we haven't seen significant ones yet.
Great, thank you. Question from the audience here. How to choose a secure AI tool to support your security operations? What are the red flags to be aware of? So it's a little bit of a two-parter here. Rami, why don't you start first here with this one?
Yeah, I'll jump in just because I'm willing to have a hot take here. We're very early in this cycle. I think the number one tip would be know you are an early adopter of this application. And understand what that entails for, the adjustment curve, the innovation curve you'll be riding along with. In terms of red flags, selecting a good tool, I think about a core question for any vendor proposing an AI tool for security operations is, I'm starting from a single signal to noise problem. Is your tool introducing noise or clearing it out? And if it's doing the latter, how can I verify that you're not increasing my rate of false negatives? I think the false negative problem is the one where there's not a lot of trust in applying AI to remove vulnerabilities or alerts from your feeds. And if you're not doing that, then a lot of these AI tools are potentially just adding additional context and noise for your analysts to look at. So I think those are the questions I'd love to get good answers to from vendors. I don't know if Alon or Anna, you have a perspective here.
Yeah, I think what I would say is what I would suspect the question would probably could be is how are they storing your data? So data privacy, because honestly, I think you're going to have compliance people come at you and say, oh, why are you feeding all this data to a vendor? What are they doing with it? And so understanding how they're storing the data would be definitely one of my questions. And how are they using that to improve the model? I think that's a really important question to ask there.
All right, I know we are ending in 3 seconds, so I'm not going to ask any more questions. So unfortunately, that's all the time we have today, but I want to thank you again, Anna, Rami, and Alon, for joining us in our discussion. and going with our crazy AI Amy moderator idea. Not a lot of people would be up for this, so I'm really happy that you guys were for this, and it made it a lot of fun. And thank you to our attendees. So Amy, do you want to close us out?
That concludes today's discussion. Thank you all.
Thank you all, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.